podcast. I'm your host, Jenna.
And I'm your host, Cambry. Other host.
Anyway, how was your week?
It was good, just like busy. How was your week?
It was good. Busy too. Had lots of photo shoots and editing and fun stuff like that, and just getting ready for some like birthday parties and things this weekend. So, but yeah, it was good. Nothing bad, like majorly bad. So I guess that's a good thing.
Progress.
Right. Nothing to report, but anyway, yeah, let's get into our topic of today. On this podcast, we're talking a lot about growth and some personal improvement and things like that. And growth is not a linear thing. It doesn't go up and up and up and to the right all the time. I know, right? But it is kind of chronological, I would say. Like you have to start somewhere on your journey, and I think the best place, at least in my experience, is to start with being honest with yourself about just everything. Because if you aren't honest with yourself, then you have no starting point from which to grow from. So, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Just kind of some of our personal experiences and things like that. And just like why that's so important to be honest with yourself and with other people. In how that's kind of the first step to improvement. So, Cambry, do you think that self-honesty is important? And why?
Absolutely. I think that the only way to grow is to be aware of where you're already at.
Yeah.
And I think that, if you're not even necessarily lying to yourself, but you're just like not facing reality, you're not telling yourself the truth about where you're at and where you want to be, then there's no hope of moving forward. There's no hope of making yourself any better. And so, I think that, like you just said, that there has to be a starting point in anyone's journey, and I completely agree that like honesty has to be the beginning.
100%, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, if you're not going to be honest with yourself, then why even like try to be better at all? So I would agree. But I think I kind of just want to talk a little bit about, in my personal life, how that's been a huge step for me, and how that's kind of changed the trajectory of the direction my life went. And so basically, I guess I should probably start back a little farther. So growing up, I've kind of already discussed this, but there was a lot of things in my life that were kind of out of my control, and they were already like planned out for me. And I think deep down it probably came from a good place in my parents' heart. But it didn't have the most positive results. My mom, as I've previously shared, had a belief that she had heard from God, and that I was supposed to be a dancer for the Lord, and use that as my skills in dance for ministry. And again, nothing wrong with that. I think that's a super awesome thing. But
if that's your heart.
Correct. Yeah. So that kind of just was the expectation for me, and I really didn't get to try out a whole lot of other things, like even sports or anything like that. It was kind of just, if my mom wanted me to do it, that's kind of what I did. And a lot of that, if there were any extra things outside of dance, a lot of them were kind of extracurricular activities that helped me be better at dance, like acting or things like that. And so I kind of grew up not really knowing who I was or what I wanted at all. And there was other things, my mom was a textbook narcissist, and I don't like to use that term because it's kind of a buzzword nowadays, I feel like. And a lot of people just kind of throw it around and don't really know what it means.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. Yeah.
Right.
But in your case,
yes. If you look at the clinical definition of what it means to be a narcissist, my mother unfortunately checks, I think, 3 out of 4 boxes last time I did some research. So it's, there was definitely some truth to, she genuinely had some issues there, and also some other undiagnosed mental health, definitely bipolar and things like that. And so she had a lot of control issues, and a lot of that, went as far as, even my diet, what I ate. I wasn't allowed to like a movie if she didn't like it, or vice versa. I remember there was like a time where my husband and I went on a date and saw a movie, and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't like that movie. She was like, oh really? Because she liked the movie, so I had to like it.
Oh my gosh.
So just, I think the control aspect also, I wasn't allowed to cut my hair growing up at all. I had to grow it out. She styled it for me. She would pick out my clothes till I was in high school pretty much. So, and I wasn't allowed to cut my hair at all until I turned 18. So yeah, there was a lot of things that were out of my control, and I kind of was just at the mercy of other people's wishes. And when you're growing up in that environment, you kind of just learn to shut down and just kind of go with the flow, and not really have any personality in that, and any personal desires.
It kind of sounds like you didn't have you weren't able to put anything into your identity because it was chosen for you already.
Correct. Yeah. And so I kind of didn't realize how much of my life was kind of a facade for everybody else. And we were the family that you show up at church on Sunday and you're smiling and you're happy and everything is great.
Every hair perfectly in place.
Yes, and ignoring the fact that during the week no one should have probably seen what happened in your house. So that was a lot of fun. So I kind of, as I got into high school, there were certain things that I wanted to do that were just normal kid things to want to do. And I wasn't allowed to do any of that. I couldn't have a phone. I wasn't allowed to learn to drive. I actually got my driver's license after I was already married, which is an interesting thing. So yeah, I kind of had this facade that I was this perfect little Christian girl and everything was great, and deep down I kind of had started to become a very selfish person and was kind of doing some things in secret I shouldn't have been doing and stuff like that, just to kind of maintain the facade of who I was. So I thought I was going to become an adult and get married, and having a husband was just going to fix me and everything was going to be great. And newsflash, that doesn't work that way at all. So basically I carried a lot of those same things into marriage. We had some hard times early on, just getting married so young. And then I decided that I was gonna listen to my husband and start kind of working on myself. And I did start to implement discipline and things like that in my life. Working out and eating healthy and going to church again and stuff like that. But it was all surface level, I fixed everything on the surface, but it was just to please other people. It wasn't really truly what I wanted, because I didn't know what I wanted, I didn't know who I wanted to be at all. And so I was miserable, surprisingly. Because when you live your whole life for everybody else, and don't really know who you are, don't really know what you want out of your life, it's really hard to be happy and have joy and peace inside. And also, regret and guilt from choices that I had made in the past and things like that. So, basically, God knew what he was doing when he gave me my husband. He gave me the best husband he could have given me. And after a couple years of being married and just really struggling and going through a lot of I'd have mental breakdown episodes because I would just be trying so hard to be a perfect person, and it just wouldn't work for very long, and I just would lose it. I finally had a realization, and I was like, wow, I am trying so hard to be the perfect wife and work out and eat perfectly and start a business and all these things and be everything for everybody else. And I'm actually deep down a selfish person, and I actually am, I'm miserable. I don't know who I even am, what I want out of life, because I've never even thought about that or had the opportunity to discover that. And so I realized, I need to sit down and reanalyze my entire life and be honest with myself. And so I did. And for me, I really like journaling. So I started doing that. And anytime I'd have a rough day, I would just kind of analyze it and be like, why am I feeling this way? Why am I feeling depressed for no reason? Why am I feeling anxious? Why did I have a breakdown? And I just started analyzing everything in my whole life and journaling it as I went. And I started to realize, where I could improve and the things that were not serving me. And I actually surprisingly started to make some improvement. And I was able to kind of figure out the type of person I wanted to become and who I want my future kids to see me as and things like that. And I, it's obviously a work in progress and it's still going, but being honest with myself was the best decision I've ever made, and it was the first step for me to start figuring out what I wanted out of life and to be a better person and start thinking about other people and not just myself. And also just a lot of peace. Like I started to feel actual peace because I knew that I was honoring what I knew the truth was. I was honoring my conscience, I was honoring God, and I was starting to, just be real with everyone around me too. And so, I just feel like I learned that if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with other people. And that's the most important thing over anything, is your integrity. So, I think that's kind of my experience with it. Do you, has there been a similar moment in your life where you had to be honest with yourself, and I guess what was the result of that?
So about 2 years ago, I want to say. 2 years ago, I was having this horrible depressive episode. I had just gone on a mission trip in Hungary, and I got back, and there are always a lot of contributing factors to any mental illness, So there were a lot of things. For one, I just really wasn't taking care of myself, but jet lag. I struggle with pretty bad insomnia, so that was definitely part of it.
Sure.
On the flight back, the flight was 12 hours, and I didn't sleep on it at all. So by the time I actually got home that night, I'd been awake for 30 hours.
That's not good.
Yeah, that doesn't put anyone in a healthy mental state,
No.
But then after that, recovering from jet lag and everything, I still just was so depressed. Didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to do anything. And I had been in therapy for a while by that point, and my therapist got to the point where she was like, you either need to be hospitalized or you need to be around someone 24/7. You have to choose between those two. And she had mandatory check-ins with me every day, stuff like that. And I mean, there's definitely part of mental illness that there's an aspect of it that you can't control. But I took that knowledge and was like, well, I can't control anything. I'm just stuck like this. I can't get any better. There's no hope. There's no getting better. There's no getting past this. Which those are all lies. I want to be very clear about that. Yeah. And so basically what happened is I got on medication for depression, and even after that, I made some improvement, but I just was still miserable and depressed and anxious. And it took a phone call from my sister, actually. And she was just like, listen, I think it's good that you're on medication, but you have to actually do stuff to help it work. It's not good enough to just be like, well, I took my pill today, so I'm going to lay on the couch, And that was honestly hard to hear, because I was like, hang on, I want to lay in bed all day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to try and get better. This is comfortable where I'm at right now.
Right.
But then there was part of me that was like, but I don't want this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I want more than this. I want to grow. I want to heal. I want to be well. And so it started really small. I started to just look at my life and look at my habits and be like, okay, well, what is a contributing factor to my depression? And a lot of it was just like, I go home and I immediately get in bed. I need to stop doing that.
That doesn't help anybody.
I need to go outside and be in the sunlight. I need to talk to people who are kind and encouraging to me. I need to actually eat 3 meals a day. I need to drink enough water. And like, as someone who has struggled with mental illness, that can seem like too easy almost to be like,
it's the basics.
well, yeah, it's like, I'm not just like a plant, like, I need more than this. But no, that was really it. And like you mentioned journaling, and that has been something that has really helped me as well to just, for one, it kind of memorializes that moment in time and like what you're dealing with, how you're feeling. And then when you do move forward, you get to look back on it and be like, oh, I didn't stay there. I wasn't just stuck there that entire time.
Right.
And
that's
so,
such a gift to yourself to be able to like just kind of see the growth and everything, because we get so stuck in our day-to-day of just trekking along and doing the best that we can that sometimes you forget, like, wow, 2 years ago I really felt like this. Wow, that's really sad.
Yeah,
and you can have some compassion on your past self, and then
Yes.
also like, let's keep going. This is encouraging, and God has been really faithful to me, and
absolutely.
just keep going. So
yeah, and that was a big part of it too, is just learning to have that compassion for myself. I think that a lot of times, especially with like women's books and groups and stuff, it's like, you're perfect just the way you are, and no, I needed someone to tell me like, no, you have room to grow. You have things that you should work on. And even in my faith, there were areas where I was lacking, and I needed someone to be like, hey, you could do better at this.
yeah.
And so that phone call with my sister did really like wake me up a little bit to see that like I do have a choice, for one thing. And you talked a lot about how like as a child you didn't have control, and then it was almost like it flipped immediately.
Right.
You had control over like
everything,
which is like a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And that was similar for me, where it's just like it feels overwhelming to like think of all the things that you have to do and like the growth that needs to be done and stuff.
And adulthood is like,
oh my gosh,
honestly,
yeah. And so learning to have that balance, where I think that sometimes we are afraid of the truth. We're afraid to be honest with ourselves because it can seem harsh.
Yeah.
But really, like, when you couple honesty with compassion, you can do so many great things.
Absolutely.
Like, you can move so far forward just from that knowledge. And I mean, I don't think that we ever help ourselves by being like, oh, like, I screwed this up again. Like, man,
I'm gonna beat myself up. Hate myself forever.
But yeah, exactly. Which we're pretty good at that. We're either like,
it's like
honest to a fault or not honest enough.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be this middle ground where I look at where I want to be, and I want to be honest enough with myself to get there, but my compassion for myself is really going to be the thing that moves me forward. Where, I want to have enough compassion to take care of my body.
Yeah.
And to journal and do all the things that I need to actually move forward. But like, it does take compassion to do that, because if I'm just like, well, I screwed up, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve to like get better, move forward, then that's moving in the opposite direction. But I think that, it's really important to just be like, well, I want to, like you said, honor myself enough to actually take care of my body and work on myself and be kind to other people and stuff. Like it's kind of an all-encompassing kind of thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, and I really like, kind of what you were talking about of going from having no control to having so much control. I think, when you come out of a kind of a traumatic situation of any kind, I think it's really easy to go into defense mode and to, you know, I had no control over anything, and so now I'm never going to let anyone ever hurt me again. I'm going to protect myself at all costs, no matter if I'm hurting other people or if in the long run I'm hurting myself. Like, that is the most important thing to me, is survival, and I think that's a good thing. Like, to a certain point, survival is what gets you through your difficult situations, your abusive situations, whatever, and it gets you through and it gets you out. But it doesn't serve you at a certain point once you get out of that, because like for me, I did the same thing where it was very textbook. Like you get to a certain point, you get free, you get out of your bad situation, and then you just kind of go into like, oh well, now I'm gonna protect myself and I'm just gonna like isolate myself from people, or you know, I deserve to be rude to this person. I deserve to lay on the couch all day. I deserve it because I've been through so much, and like this is what's gonna help me at this point, and my self-care and just everything. That's the most important thing to you, and you become like, yourself ends up becoming what's most important to you. And I think there's a lot of kind of misconception, or you know, a lot of popular belief that yourself should be the most important thing to you. And I think, again, at a certain point, in your healing phase, it is necessary to be selfish to a certain degree, but it's a short while while you collect your thoughts and you make a plan and you kind
don't
of
want to stay there.
Correct. And then you need to start stepping out of that comfort zone and out of that self-destruction and everything, and like actually start focusing outward on how you can focus on other people. And I think too, what you said, like it can be definitely scary to be honest with yourself. I know it was for me, because again, my whole life was just like pretending to be something I wasn't for everybody else. And so I think, and I would lie to myself, like thinking back, I remember there were so many times where someone would say like my husband, for example, would be like, do you actually want this? Like, and you know, I would just be like, oh yeah, I definitely do. And even in my head, I literally knew at that point that was such a lie. Like, I'm lying to myself if I'm saying this is the path I actually want for myself. And so I think, you know, it was scary for me, because I was like, well, in being honest with myself, that means I have to face my past mistakes. And some of those were things that were towards other people. And so that's scary, because it's like, well, what if I realize I'm actually not a good person? And you know, you want to believe you're a good person, you want to believe you're doing the right things and everything. And so then you kind of freak yourself out, because you're like, I can't be honest with myself, because then that means I'm a bad person. And then what if like I have to face somebody and tell them something, like they're gonna think I'm a bad person and they're gonna leave me and my life is gonna be over. And then like we just freak ourselves out about it, and it doesn't have to be like this big scary thing. Like I think there's so many things like that in life that we don't realize, that if you just take that step of faith, it's a step of faith, that first initial step. But
There's
like,
risk to it.
Absolutely. But there's risk to everything. There's risk to staying in your comfort zone.
Yes,
because then you end up depressed, you end up anxious, you end up like, you feel so trapped in your current reality. Like I felt so trapped in my current reality of, you know, I would muster up the strength to get through the week and try to be a good person and work on myself and on all my surface level stuff, and then I would have a moment where I'm like, I cannot physically do this anymore. I'm exhausted emotionally, I'm stressed out, and then I would snap and I would get into an argument with my husband, or, you know, go into self-destruction mode and everything, and then I would feel super depressed, like I'm just never gonna change, and I just can't change, and this is just my life now, and I'm just a worthless person, and I just can't, you know, I can't do anything different than this, and this is just what my life is going to be. And then I had to have that full stop of like, no, you need to come to terms with some things about yourself and about your situation, and then you need to make a plan, and you need to get better, and you will get better. And it's true, like taking that step of faith is terrifying. And it took me like 3 years into marriage to do it, and I finally did it. And there were a few scary moments, but like on the other side of it, like, there is hope, and there is so much, like, again, you know when you're lying to yourself.
Right.
Like, you, deep down, you may not believe it, but everybody knows in their conscience when you're lying to yourself, and when you know you're cutting corners, when you know you're not being authentic to who you know you're supposed to be, when you're lying to people, you know that in your head. And so, you know, like, that's where it's called cognitive dissonance, when your actions don't line up with what your actual beliefs are. And that actually just causes so much stress within yourself, and you honestly end up destroying yourself living that way. And you feel, even if you want to lie to yourself more and tell yourself, like, no, I'm great with this is my life, it's fine, I'm telling myself the truth, you know, and you will never feel the same level of peace as you do when you were honest with yourself and with other people. Like, I have never felt this level of peace in my life that I do now. And it's literally all because I just was honest with myself and other people and with God. Like, that's it.
Also, I think that there's this shift between an identity of victimhood and an identity of authenticity, because, and again, just like what you were saying, like, it's okay to look back and say to yourself, I was a victim in my childhood. There's nothing wrong with that. But to continue being a victim once you have been pulled out of that situation, that's where you start to have issues.
Yes.
Because, and I remember doing that, like, when, a couple years ago, when I was just having my really awful depressive episode, I was just like, it's all my mom's fault, and, like, I'm gonna be this way forever because of what she did, and, like, all these things, and I believed it, but just like what you were saying, I was lying to myself that, you know, that I had no control over who I was going to be or the choices that I got to make, and it's just not true. And so when you actually do start to view your authentic self and who you want to be and the steps to get there, then you can actually, like, move towards that. But when it's just like, when you believe that you're a victim, you're going to act as though you are.
Absolutely. And the longer that goes on, the more it becomes reinforced.
Yeah, and it's like cemented into your mind.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, yes, this happened to me and it was truly awful, and I get to make the decisions for my future. I get to build the life that I want, and I get to make myself into the person that I desire to be. And I think the other important thing, like, is that we're not alone when we do this, especially, like, you and me, like, we've got each other, and, like, that's our whole hope for this podcast, is that we want to build community so that we can hold each other accountable, and not just be like, okay, well, I'm stuck in my life the way that it is, and nothing's ever going to change. And if you keep on telling yourself that, it's going to become more and more true.
Yes.
But especially if you have people who are like, no, I believe in you, you are better than this, like, you can reach greater things than what you're doing right now, then you can start to, like, take from that and, like, share it with yourself.
Yes.
You know, which I think is so important. Like, you and your husband, and then me and my older sister, like, we take what they say to us, and we're just like, hang on, maybe I can actually be better. Maybe I can grow and, like, make improvement through this.
Right, and sometimes it hurts, again, to hear.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if it's somebody, like, I know growing up, I believed that love meant that you are just loved and accepted at any phase and stage, and that you can just be the worst person in the world and they should just love you unconditionally, and, like, that doesn't mean that you ever have to make any changes, and, like, the way you are when you get married, if they love you, they have to love that version of you and any version of you for the rest of your life. And I don't believe that's true. I've never seen that to be true in my experience. You know, it does hurt to hear from someone who cares about you, or from anyone really, that you need, you know, there's things that you're doing that are lacking, and you really need to step it up, especially when you are in that victim mindset where you're like, well, I'm this way because my mom abused me. I'm this way because I had a bad relationship, or I'm this way because my sister died, or things like that. It's really easy to get stuck in that, and it's really hard to hear from someone, and you will make excuses a lot of the time. But if you just take a step back from your emotions and if you know and trust that that person has the best of intentions for you, which
Right.
like it took me a while to realize this, but I know without a doubt my husband has the best intentions for me, and he loves me so much, and that so therefore knowing his intentions, anything he says to me comes from that place of love, and so therefore I need to take it, and obviously some things need to be taken with a grain of salt, but like
Right.
you can take that and trust that feedback from those people in your life, those special people that you trust, and you can start to self-reflect and change. And I truly believe that I would never be the person I am if it were not for my husband, and I am very thankful for him because he didn't give up on me when I pushed back, because he told me all of these things for a couple years. And I'm a stubborn person, I really am, and I pushed back for a long time. But he just never gave up and just kept pushing, and those people that push you in love are the people that truly care about you. And that's the other thing in our society. Don't even get me started, we'll talk about this at some point. But the people, someone loving you doesn't mean that they're gonna enable your bad behavior. It doesn't mean that they're gonna tolerate you at every stage and version, and it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
It really shouldn't. And so we all need to kind of relearn that in our society, I think, is take a step back from your emotions and understand that the reason that they're telling you this is because they love you and they want you to be better, and also for your relationships to improve. And so I think definitely that's something that I really want us to really focus on this podcast too, is just, like you said, building that community with all of you guys. And just really, like, I think a lot of that has been lost in our current society. Everyone is very isolated from each other. Nobody knows how to communicate with each other anymore. And I think as women, like, it's time for us to step up and hold each other accountable and show each other that there's more to life than what we're currently living and currently being shown. Because there is, like, we're all meant for so much more than just being stuck in a place where we're miserable, or we're stuck in victimhood, or whatever.
That's very common in our society, is for, just because you were born a woman, you're a victim, and
these darn men, the patriarchy.
That's your burden to bear for the rest of your life.
Yes.
And I refuse to submit to that. I believe that I am strong and I am capable and I can do great things because I decide to, and I don't have to just be like, oh, well, it's the men's fault and it's my mom's fault and it's all these bad things that happen to me. Because if that's all my life is, then I am powerless to make it any better.
Absolutely.
But when I step out of my victimhood, then I'm able to say, well, I'm able to change this.
Yes.
Because it's within my circle of influence, so I'm going to. And once I make that decision, then I can actually start changing my life and making things better for myself. And there have been so many things the past couple years that I have had to change, I have had to do differently. And they've all been good. It's been hard because changing your life is hard. It's hard to change your habits and stuff. But it's so good and it's so rewarding as well. And I think that that's really important when we think about who we are as women, not to just be like, well, the world tells me that I have no hope because of men.
That's not the truth. Like, you are literally being lied to.
And we have to stand up against that and remind each other of who we are and what we're capable of. And I just think that that's really important, because the world is always going to try and tell you who you are and what you need to do and how you need to fight the patriarchy and stuff like that. And we can be women and do great things. Like, we don't have to change who we are. We don't have to be more like men or anything like that. Like, we can be women and we can hold each other accountable and we can change and grow, and we are capable of doing that.
100%. And whenever you choose to take that step and you choose to be honest with yourself and you choose to be empowered, like, you're by doing that, you're letting go of your past and the weight of your past, so you can live in the present and focus more on the people around you. Because that's, as women, like, yes, we are different than men,
Yes.
and that's a beautiful thing. That is a wonderful thing, because we are the ones who are compassionate. We are the ones who are loving. We are the ones who are relational more than men are, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. And they can never achieve that in the same way that we can.
Right.
And so I think we need to tap a lot more into that as women. You know, let go of your past, stop being burdened down by it, and stop letting that influence your present and future, and focus in the future and in the present and all of that on how you can use those gifts that you have to connect with other women and care for the people in your life and make an impact, because we all just need to stop being so focused on ourselves
Right.
and on our past and all of the things that have been done to us, and we need to start focusing on other people and loving other people and caring about other people, because that's the only way that things are going to ever change in our lives and in the world, really.
Right.
Like the state that it's in, that is all we can do, is just love those around us. And that's something that you know, I really want all of you guys to know that if you don't have somebody in your life that can be that accountability partner for you, that can be a person to go to talk to, because not everyone is blessed like us to have a great best friend.
Yes.
But, you know, with similar beliefs and experiences. But like, we're here, you know, I've set up an Instagram for us now. I'm gonna link it at the end of this video and in the description. And you can DM us, like, if you need to talk about any of this stuff or just anything at all. If you have questions, if you just need somebody to be like, hey, I'm here. Like, if you want to start this journey, like, we are here and we're on it with you, and we're still a work in progress with you. Do that. Like, reach out to us if you don't have anybody, or if you just want to chat, and we definitely would love to talk with you. And yeah, I think that's really what we want to accomplish, is just make this a great community of women who just want to be better for the people in their lives and better for the world. So yeah. Anyway, if you can like and subscribe. I feel so corny saying that, but if you can like and subscribe, and just comment, share, message us, anything, we would really appreciate it. And we love all of you, and we hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye.